But some of the questions I always get from people, is insurance more expensive in Texas? I always get that one on. Is car insurance more expensive? Why would it be more expensive? And is it flood everywhere? Paul, the floor is yours.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the cool thing about Texas is our laws are very different than other states. That a lot of people don't know that. One of the things about I have a lot of people moving from California. Obviously, in California, they don't run credit, and credit is the number one factor in Texas, which I think is kind of interesting. And there's a lot of good things and bad things about that. Texas takes credit as a number one factor, and so it's the best indication of a loss is someone's credit score, which I think is kind of interesting, where California is the opposite of that. But no, we have some great rates in Texas because we don't have to deal with a lot of things like, California has to deal with things like brush fire and sinking. They're sliding off of America. They have to deal with a lot of laws like that.
I told you he was Texan, everybody. I told you he was Texan.
We don't have to deal with that here. The good thing about Austin, where we live, it's the cheapest rates in the entire state of Texas because we're kind of sheltered. The coast has to deal with hurricanes, and Dallas area has to deal with what we call the hail belt. So if there's hail passes through the Dallas area multiple times a year and causes multiple damages. Houston has to deal with flooding, has to deal with hurricanes as well, and Austin is kind of tucked in this little area that we have to deal with a lot. We have flooding obviously sometimes, but a lot it's mostly kept to the outside of it. So we have the cheapest rate. So I like to say the average premium in like Texas is about in Austin's like $700. In Dallas, it's double, $1,400. In Houston, it's triple, somewhere around $2,100 a year. And then down the valley, it's probably the same thing, $2,100 a year, because they have to deal with multiple things, like not just have to deal with home insurance, but have to deal with things like flood, TWIA, Texas windstorm, Texas FEMA, so flood insurance as well. So that's why it's a little more expensive there. So yes, the question is, yes, it is cheaper. If you've got an 824 credit score, then yes, it is cheaper. I've seen a lot of situations where people talk about, hey, I went through a divorce or I went through some medical stuff. And so most people don't know that you can rerun your insurance score and get a better rate. If you went through some stuff, you went through a situation, all of a sudden now your credit went from 600 to 824. You can rerun your numbers and get a better rate. Most people don't realize you can do that. Sweet. That's a couple of things. Yeah, but besides that, yeah, it's not that much more expensive. We're actually cheaper as a whole across the country because our laws are better. We do have a big issue right now that you're going to see in the Texas and Austin area with the police are no longer responding to car accidents anymore. So we're seeing a huge skyrocket of uninsured motorists, people driving here with no insurance. They know they're not going to get in trouble for having a car accident, and so they're still driving on uninsured motorists. So that's one of the biggest things we deal with here from a car perspective is people driving here with no insurance. That kind of stinks, makes our uninsured rates go a little higher because of that. But as a whole, man, rates are cheap as a whole in Texas compared to a lot of places.
Late last year, I had somebody pull out in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
She had no driver's license, driving her boyfriend's car.
Mm-hmm.
The police wouldn't come.
Mm-hmm.
Then that's when they started doing that.
Yep.
And then I called I called about the police report because I was like, well, how's insurance going to handle this? They told me to file my own police report. I filed my own police report. I said exactly what happened. I filed it with the city. And then when her insurance company said, well, she said she didn't do anything wrong. I was like, she doesn't have a driver's license. She doesn't know what's right and wrong. She didn't even pass the test. They said, well, we don't really care. So they actually sided with them for a long time until I got my company to win in subrogation. But that whole thing was like mind blowing to me.
Yeah. It's the craziest thing. I deal with it every day. It's like, hey, I got someone rear-ended me. They admitted they were at fault, and all of a sudden, 2 days later, they're like, "Oh yeah, they pulled out in front of me and slammed their brakes." I mean, people's stories change so much. Like they'll tell you one thing to your face. I always tell my clients, man, when you got a car, you record the entire conversation because they're so apologetic at the time, but when stuff goes down, they're like, "Oh yeah, I don't know what you're talking about." So, so yeah, it's a kind of a scary situation there, but it happens so often. But unfortunately, it is what it is. They're not doing anything about it right now, unless someone's seriously injured. Then they'll send police out, and then they'll send out an ambulance, stuff like that. But if that doesn't happen, then yeah. The question about 6 months. So car insurance is typically on average 6 month premiums. $700 is the average. It's actually about 100. That's for a car. So an annual premium for a home is about $700 a year for home insurance on average. Okay, and for car insurance, it's about $80 to $100 a month for car insurance. Now, if you're a baller and you drive a Tesla, it's a little bit more expensive. But besides that, the normal car, it's about $600 or $700 every 6 months on their car insurance. It can fluctuate based on multiple factors.
When I told Paul I was getting a Tesla, he's like, "Oh, your insurance is going to go up." I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, you might as well just buy a Porsche." Thanks for watching this short of the REALMigos podcast. For more live streams, hit here. For more clips, hit here. We'll catch you on the next one.